They say a woman's worth is measured in cradles filled and lullabies sung. By that measure, I was worthless. My name is Elena Ashford, and this is the story of how I went from being society's rejected failure to the mother of 5 extraordinary children and the wife of the most dangerous man I've ever known. 3 years of marriage, dozens of physicians, hundreds of prayers whispered in the dark, one final crushing verdict, Barren. I'll never forget the way my husband looked at me when the last doctor delivered the news. Not with sympathy, not with sadness, with disgust, as if my body's refusal to conceive was a personal betrayal. Within a week he had the marriage annulled. Within a month my family disowned me. My mother wouldn't even look at me as the servants packed my belongings. My father said I had brought shame upon their house. My sister, who I had once been so close to, whispered that I was cursed by God himself. At 24 years old I became a ghost, alive but unseen, breathing but not living. I had no money of my own, no prospects, no references for employment because what respectable family would hire a woman cast out for such intimate failure? I spent 2 months in a boarding house for unwanted women watching my small savings dwindle. I considered the workhouse. I considered worse options. I considered simply walking into the river one cold night and letting the current decide my fate. Then the letter came. It was delivered by a man in black livery who looked at me with eyes that reflected lamplight strangely. The paper was expensive, cream-coloured, sealed with black wax bearing a crest I didn't recognise. I almost threw it away, certain it was some cruel joke. But desperation makes you do strange things. I opened it. Lady Elena Ashford. The fact that it still called me lady made me want to laugh and cry simultaneously. I require a governess for my 5 children, immediate placement, room and board provided, salary generous, protection guaranteed, discretion mandatory. Present yourself at Ravenwood Estate before midnight on the date below or the offer expires. Duke Lucian Thorne. I read it 7 times. A duke, writing to a disgraced, divorced woman. It had to be a mistake or a trap. But then I looked around my tiny, freezing room. I looked at the last few coins in my purse. I had nothing to lose, not anymore. The dignity they could steal was already gone. So on a night when the rain fell like tears from heaven, I hired the cheapest carriage I could find and gave the driver the address. The driver's face went pale when I told him. Ravenwood Estate. He asked if I was certain. When I nodded, he muttered something that sounded like a prayer and told me he'd take me to the gates but no further. The road through the forest seemed to stretch forever. Trees pressed in from both sides, their branches reaching across the path like skeletal fingers. When we finally arrived, the driver took my money and left before I even retrieved my single trunk from the carriage. I stood there in the pouring rain, looking up at iron gates that were easily 15 feet tall. They were worked into intricate patterns of roses and thorns, beautiful and menacing at once. Beyond them, at the end of a long drive, I could see the estate. It looked like something from a Gothic novel. All towers and steep roofs and windows that glowed with warm light but somehow seemed cold. Thunder crashed directly overhead and I jumped. Then the gates began to open, by themselves. No gatekeeper. No mechanism I could see. They just swung inward with a groan of old metal. I picked up my trunk because there was no one to help me carry it, and I walked through those gates. With each step I told myself I could turn back, but where would I go? So I kept walking. The estate grew larger as I approached. Gargoyles perched on the corners of the roof. The front doors were massive oak, carved with scenes I couldn't quite make out in the darkness. Before I could knock, they opened. A butler stood there, ancient and thin, with eyes that looked tired in a way that went beyond lack of sleep. "Welcome, Lady Elena, you are expected." His voice sounded like dry leaves. I followed him inside and my breath caught. Ravenwood Estate was a cathedral of darkness. The floors were black marble veined with silver. The walls were dark wood panelling. Chandeliers dripped with crystals that caught the candlelight and threw shadows everywhere. Rich crimson curtains covered windows that seemed too tall. Portraits lined the halls, and I swear their eyes followed me. Men and women in clothing from different centuries, all pale, all beautiful, all watching. The butler led me through corridors that twisted and turned until I was completely lost. Finally, we stopped before massive oak doors carved with a family tree. The roots went deep, the branches reached high, and names were inscribed on every limb. The butler knocked once, then opened the doors and gestured me inside. I stepped into a library that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with more books than I'd ever seen. A fire crackled in a fireplace large enough to stand in. Leather chairs. A desk of dark wood, and shadows, so many shadows. Then a voice came from those shadows, deep and commanding and like nothing I'd ever heard. You came. I turned toward the voice and Duke Lucian Thorne stepped into the firelight. I'm not ashamed to admit that I forgot how to breathe. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, broad shoulders in a perfectly tailored black coat, dark hair that fell just past his collar, aristocratic features that were almost too perfect, like a sculpture come to life, but it was his eyes that held me frozen. Silver. Not grey, not blue, silver like moonlight on water. They fixed on me with an intensity that made me feel transparent. I tried to curtsy and nearly fell because my legs were shaking. I stammered, yes, Your Grace, I received your letter. The position, is it still available? He moved around me, not circling exactly but observing. When he moved it was unnaturally smooth. He gestured to a chair. Sit, please, you must be cold and wet. I sat carefully on the edge of an ancient leather chair. He poured wine from a crystal decanter into 2 glasses and I watched his hands. Elegant, long fingers, steady. He handed me a glass, and I noticed his skin was cool when our fingers brushed. He sat across from me, those silver eyes never leaving my face. I have employed 17 governesses in the past 3 years, Lady Alina. None of them lasted more than a month, most left within a week. 2 left in the middle of the night without even collecting their belongings. My children are, he paused, difficult. I found my voice, though it shook slightly. Children often are, Your Grace, especially when they've lost their mother. I understand your wife passed. The letter mentioned 5 children. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those strange eyes. Yes, 5 children. Adrian is 15, Serafina is 12, Cashan and Celeste are 9-year-old twins, and Nikolai is 6. Their ages range widely, as does their temperament, but they share certain traits, intelligence, strong will, and they can be dangerous. I frowned at that. Dangerous, Your Grace, I'm sure they're simply grieving and acting out. Children do that when they feel abandoned. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and said very quietly, Are they? I didn't understand. Are they what, Your Grace? He held my gaze. Children, Lady Alina, are they simply children? I felt coldness creep up my spine that had nothing to do with my wet clothes. I don't understand what you're asking me. He sat back and took a sip of his wine. Tell me about yourself, your marriage, your family, your situation. I felt heat rise to my face. That's rather personal, he nodded. It is, but I know already. I had you investigated before I sent the letter. I know you were married at 21 to Lord Thomas Ashford. I know you suffered 3 miscarriages in 3 years. I know that physicians declared you barren. I know your husband had the marriage annulled and your family disowned you. I know you've been living in a boarding house, nearly penniless, for 2 months. I know you're desperate. Tears strung my eyes, shame burned in my chest. Why, I asked, why investigate me? Why choose me if you know I'm damaged goods? That's what they call me, you know, damaged, defective, cursed. His voice gentled slightly. That is precisely why I chose you, Alina. May I call you Alina? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He continued. I chose you because you know what it's like to be called a monster for something beyond your control. I chose you because you have nothing to lose and nowhere to go, which means you might stay when others run. I chose you because my children don't need someone who will fear them. They need someone who understands them. I wiped my eyes. I still don't understand, Your Grace. What would they need to be understood about? Why would anyone fear children? He stood and walked to the fireplace, his back to me. What do you know of my family, Alina? Of the Thornes? I searched my memory. Very little. You're wealthy, old bloodline. You keep to yourselves. There are rumors, but there are always rumors about wealthy, reclusive families. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Rumors, yes. What do the rumors say? I hesitated. That your family is cursed. That people who visit Ravenwood sometimes don't leave. That you're all mad or diseased or hiding some terrible secret. Children's stories. He turned to face me. What if I told you the children's stories are true? What if I told you that there are things in this world that society pretends don't exist because acknowledging them would shatter their carefully constructed reality? What if I told you that monsters are real, Alina, and I am one of them? My mouth went dry. I should have been terrified. I should have run, but I'd been called a monster too, for a body that wouldn't work the way it should. For failing at the one thing women were supposedly made to do. So instead of running, I asked quietly what kind of monster. He smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. His lips pulled back slightly and I saw his canine teeth extend, sharpen, become fangs. The ancient kind, he said, vampire. The world tilted. I gripped the arms of my chair. He moved impossibly fast, suddenly crouched in front of me, not touching but close. His eyes glowed silver in the firelight. I could smell him, something like winter air and old books and copper. Breathe, Elena, I gasped in air. You're vampire, he confirmed. I have been for nearly 300 years. And my children are half vampire. Their mother was human. Beautiful, kind, fragile. I loved her desperately. She gave me 5 children, which shouldn't have been possible. Each birth was harder than the last. With Nikolai she was dying, bleeding to death. She begged me to turn her, to make her like me, to save her life. His voice broke slightly. I did, I turned her, but her body had been through too much. The transformation requires strength and she had none left. She died anyway in agony and I killed her as surely as if I'd driven a stake through her heart myself. So now I have 5 children who are caught between 2 worlds, too human to be accepted in vampire society, too vampire to ever be normal in human society. They're children, yes, but they're also predators. They have strength that can break bones, speed that human eyes can barely track, hunger for blood, senses that hear heartbeats and smell fear, and they've been rejected, feared, and abandoned by everyone who was supposed to care for them. I found my voice, shaking but clear. Why are you telling me this? Why not just hire someone and let them discover it? He met my eyes. Because I'm tired of watching my children hope that someone will stay, only to be abandoned again. I'm telling you now so you can leave before they meet you, before they have a chance to hope. I'll pay you for your time and trouble. Give you enough money to start somewhere new. But if you stay, Elena, if you walk through that door to meet them, I need you to mean it. I need you to stay. They can't survive another loss. I should have taken the money and run. Any sane person would have. But I thought about being called a monster, about being abandoned by everyone I loved, about what it would have meant if just one person had stayed. I stood up on shaking legs. What are their names again? Lucian stood slowly and I saw something I hadn't expected in those ancient silver eyes. Hope, Adrian, Serafina, Cashan and Celeste, Nikolai, I nodded. I'd like to meet them now, please. He studied me for a long moment. You understand what you're agreeing to? This isn't a normal household. There are dangers, vampire politics, hunters who would kill them simply for existing, the children themselves when they lose control. I thought of my empty, purposeless life. I understood that nothing about this made sense, that I should be terrified. But for the first time in months I felt something other than despair. I felt needed. Yes, I understand. Take me to them. He led me through more corridors, up a grand staircase, down another hall. We stopped before double doors. Beyond them I heard nothing. No sounds of children at all. Lucian put his hand on the door handle and looked at me one more time. Last chance, Elena. I lifted my chin. Open the door, he did. The nursery wing was enormous. Clearly it had once been beautifully decorated, but now it looked like a battlefield. Torn curtains, broken furniture, claw marks on the walls, and in the darkness 5 pairs of eyes glowed at me. Red, green, gold, silver, glowing like animals' eyes in lamplight. Lucian spoke quietly. Children, this is Elena Ashford, she's here to meet you. A voice came from the darkness, male and dripping with teenage disdain. Another one, father, really, this is pathetic. We don't need a babysitter. Lucian's voice became stern. Adrian, mind your manners. Candles suddenly flared to life throughout the room and I could see them. 5 children, beautiful, unnatural, dangerous. Adrian was 15, tall and lean with dark hair like his father's and eyes that shifted between brown and red. He leaned against a wall with his arms crossed, radiating hostility. Serafina sat in a window seat, 12 years old with cascading red curls and green eyes that studied me with unsettling intelligence. She wore a dress that had probably been beautiful before it was torn and stained. The twins, Cashan and Celeste, stood together near an overturned bookshelf. Both had blonde hair and silver eyes. They watched me with identical expressions of curiosity mixed with suspicion. They held hands, and I noticed their fingers had slight claw-like nails. And then there was Nikolai. 6 years old, small for his age, with dark curls and eyes that were too large in his pale face. He clutched a stuffed raven that looked like it had been sewn back together many times. He stood slightly behind a chair, as if ready to hide. I took a breath and stepped forward. Hello, my name is Elena, it's very nice to meet you all. Serafina tilted her head. You smell warm. Human, are you afraid? Your heartbeat is very fast. I decided on honesty. Yes, I'm afraid. This is all very new to me, but I'd like to get to know you if you'll let me. Cashin and Celeste spoke at the same time, which I would learn was their habit. Will you run like the last one? She cried and said we were devils. She left in the middle of the night. My heart ached. I'm sorry that happened to you. That must have hurt very much. They blinked in surprise as if they hadn't expected sympathy. Adrian pushed off from the wall and crossed the room with inhuman speed. Suddenly he was right in front of me, close enough that I could see his eyes bleed from brown to full red. Let's get this over with. He opened his mouth and his fangs extended. We're monsters, Miss Ashford, freaks of nature, abominations, most people scream about now, so go ahead. Scream and run, and let's stop pretending this will work. I looked at this hurting, angry boy and saw myself. All the times I'd wanted to make people reject me first before they could hurt me. I spoke quietly. I was called a freak too, Adrian, for a body that wouldn't work the way society demanded. My family called me cursed. My husband called me defective. People whispered that I was being punished by God. So no, I won't scream, because I know exactly what it feels like to be called a monster for something you can't control. And it's not fair, and it's not right, and I'm so very sorry that you know that feeling too. Adrian froze. His eyes flickered between red and brown. He stepped back, his expression confused. Serafina spoke from her window seat, her voice softer. You're really not afraid of us? I turned to her. I'm afraid of many things, of failing you, of not being what you need, but afraid of you. No, you're children who have been hurt and who are trying to protect yourselves. I understand that. Little Nikolai spoke for the first time, his voice barely a whisper. The last lady said we killed our mother. She said we were parasites and we drank her dry. She said we should never have been born. I crossed the room and knelt in front of him, tears filling my eyes. That woman was cruel and wrong, and I'm so sorry she said those terrible things to you. You didn't kill your mother. Being born is never a child's fault. Do you understand me, Nikolai? Never. He stared at me with those two large eyes. Do you know lullabies? The governesses always said they didn't have time for baby things, but I'm scared at night and I can't remember the songs Mother used to sing. My voice shook. Yes, sweetheart, I know lullabies. If you'd like, I can sing them to you. His small hand reached out and touched my sleeve. Tonight, I nodded. Tonight and every night you want me to. Lucian spoke from the doorway, his voice rough with emotion. Children, it's late. Elena has had a long journey. Let her get settled and you'll have plenty of time tomorrow. Serafina slid from her window seat. Will you really still be here tomorrow, or will you leave in the night like the others? I stood and faced all 5 of them. I give you my word. When you wake up tomorrow, I'll be here, and the day after that, and the day after that, for as long as you'll have me. Cashin and Celeste exchanged glances. We'll see, Cashin said, but Celeste added quietly, we hope you mean it. Adrian just stared at me, his arms crossed again, but the hostility had dimmed slightly. We'll be testing you, don't think we won't, I nodded. I'd expect nothing less. Nikolai tugged my sleeve again. Promise about the lullaby. I bent down. I promise. What's your favorite? He thought seriously. The one about the stars watching over you. I smiled. I know that one. I'll come sing it before you sleep. He smiled just a little, and it transformed his face from a wary creature to the child he should have been. A butler appeared to show me to my room. It was far larger than anywhere I'd ever stayed. A 4-poster bed with heavy curtains, a fireplace already lit, a sitting area with books, a dressing room with more space than I needed for my single trunk of belongings. I sat on the bed and shook, not from fear exactly, from the enormity of what I'd just agreed to, from the weight of 5 pairs of desperate eyes, from the memory of Lucian's silver gaze when I'd said I would stay. A knock came at my door. Come in. Lucian entered and somehow the large room felt small. I wanted to make sure you had everything you need. I laughed a little hysterically. Your Grace, I went from a boarding house room the size of your closet to this. I have more than I need. He smiled faintly. Lucian, if you're going to live here, be part of this family, call me Lucian. I nodded. Lucian then. He moved to the fireplace. Thank you for what you said to them about being called a monster. Whether you meant it or were simply being kind, it was what they needed to hear. I meant it, every word. I understand them more than they know. He turned to face me. They will test you. Adrian will be hostile. Serafina will try to manipulate you. The twins will play tricks. Nikolai will have nightmares and episodes where the hunger overtakes him. There will be blood, possibly danger. If at any point you want to leave, tell me, I'll make sure you're safe and cared for. But please don't let them see you go, I'll make an excuse, say I sent you away. Let them be angry at me, not hurt by another abandonment. I met his eyes. I'm not going to leave. He shook his head. You say that now. Wait until Adrian threatens you in a rage. Wait until you see them feed. Wait until Nikolai loses control and you see what he's capable of. I stood and crossed to him. I was married to a man who grew to hate me. I watched physicians examine me like livestock. I heard my own mother say she wished I'd never been born. I've survived cruelty, Lucian. I can survive this. He looked down at me, and I realized how close we were standing. You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, I admitted, but those children need someone and I need to be needed, so we're going to make this work. He studied my face for a long moment. I find myself hoping you're right, then he stepped back. I'll leave you to rest. Nikolai's room is 3 doors down on the left. He goes to bed in an hour. I nodded. I'll be there. He left and I sat back down, my heart pounding. What had I gotten myself into? But when I went to Nikolai's room an hour later and found him in a bed too large for his small body, clutching his sewn raven, and I sang him the lullaby about stars watching over him, and he fell asleep holding my hand, I knew exactly what I'd gotten into. I'd gotten into a family that needed me, and I needed them right back. The weeks that followed were unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I learned that vampire children don't sleep like human children. They can go days without rest, then sleep for 16 hours. I learned that they're stronger than they look. The first time Celeste had a tantrum and threw a solid oak chair across the room, I understood what Lucian meant by dangerous. I learned that their senses were overwhelming. Loud noises caused them pain. Certain smells were unbearable. They could hear my heartbeat from across the house and knew my emotional state before I did. I learned each of them individually. Adrian was brilliant, reading philosophy and poetry far above his apparent age. But he was also angry, so angry at a world that would never accept him, at a father who had cursed him with this bloodline, at a mother who had left him even though he knew it wasn't her choice. He tested me constantly. He would appear suddenly, using his speed to try to startle me. He would say cruel things to see if I'd snap back or cry. He would ignore lessons and disappear for hours. But I also learned that he sat outside Nikolai's door every night, listening to make sure his baby brother was safe. That he practiced piano in the music room when he thought no one could hear, playing pieces his mother had loved. That he kept a journal filled with poetry about loneliness and longing. So when he said something cutting, I would respond calmly. When he disappeared, I would leave his favorite books in his room. When he played piano, I would listen from the hallway and never mention it. Slowly, so slowly, his tests became less vicious. One day in the library, I was teaching him advanced mathematics and he actually did the problems. When I praised his work, he shrugged. It's not difficult. I said gently, no, it's not for you. You're remarkably intelligent, Adrian. He looked at me suspiciously. You're not just saying that. I shook my head. I never say things I don't mean. What would be the point? He almost smiled. The old governesses always lied. Said we were normal when we weren't. Said everything was fine when it wasn't. It was exhausting. I can imagine you're not normal, but normal is overrated. You're extraordinary, that's far better. He did smile then, just a little. You're strange, Miss Ashford, I laughed. Elena, and yes, I am. Strange women end up in vampire estates teaching supernatural children. It's in the handbook. He laughed, actually laughed. It was the first time I'd heard it and it was beautiful. Serafina was different. She was elegant and controlled and so careful. She watched everything, calculated everyone. She had learned to manipulate because it was how she protected herself. She would compliment me, then watch to see how I reacted. She would create little crises to test if I'd stay calm. She would pit the others against each other to see if I'd notice and intervene. But I also learned she was artistic. She could draw anything perfectly from memory. She had designed and sewn all her own clothes. She gardened in the estate's greenhouse, creating hybrid plants that shouldn't exist. So I started asking her advice. Serafina, what do you think Adrian needs right now? Serafina, how should I handle the twins' argument? Serafina, I don't understand this plant, can you teach me? At first she was suspicious. Why are you asking me? I'm a child. I met her intelligent gaze. You're 12 years old with the observational skills of someone twice your age. You notice everything. You understand people. That's a gift and I'd be foolish not to recognize it. She blinked. Most adults don't like that I see through them. I smiled. Most adults are insecure. I'm too old and too tired to pretend. Besides, you're going to be a formidable woman someday, Serafina. You might as well start using those skills for good now. She tilted her head. What do you mean for good? I said gently. You could manipulate people, yes, you're good at it, or you could lead them, guide them, protect them. All the same skills, different intention. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said softly, Mother used to say I was too clever for my own good, that no man would want a wife who saw too much. I felt anger flare. Your mother was wrong. And any man intimidated by your intelligence isn't worth your time. You're not too clever, the world is too small. She stared at me. Then quietly, will you teach me about leadership, about using influence well? I smiled. I would be honored. After that, Serafina became my ally. When Adrian was difficult, she would intervene. When the twins were chaotic, she would help me redirect them. When Nikolai was scared, she would comfort him. She bloomed under responsibility and trust. One day I found her in the music room. She sat at the piano, staring at the keys but not playing. I sat beside her. Your father mentioned your mother played. She nodded. Beautifully. I can't. Every time I try, it sounds wrong. Wrong how? Like a copy, like I'm trying to be her and failing. I thought carefully, you're trying to play her version. What if you played yours? She frowned. What if mine isn't good enough? I asked quietly. What if it's better? Not better than hers, but better for you. What if you stopped trying to be her ghost and started being yourself? Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I know how. Then let's find out together. Play something, anything, not how you think it should sound, how you feel it. She put her hands on the keys and began to play. It was halting at first, then stronger. It wasn't what I expected. It was darker, more complex, with unexpected rhythms. It was hauntingly beautiful. When she finished, she looked at me nervously. I smiled with tears in my eyes. That was extraordinary. Truly. She whispered it didn't sound like Mother's playing. I said gently no. It sounded like yours, and it was perfect. The twins, Cashan and Celeste, were chaos incarnate. They moved in perfect synchronization, finished each other's sentences, and had an uncanny ability to be in two places at once. They played elaborate tricks on the staff, rearranged furniture in impossible ways, and seemed to delight in confusion. But they were also deeply connected and fiercely protective of each other and their siblings. They had been born just minutes apart and seemed to share thoughts. I learned that direct discipline didn't work with them. Sending them to their room meant they'd be out the window in seconds. Lectures went in one ear and out the other, so I tried a different approach. I gave them projects, complex puzzles, elaborate scavenger hunts, engineering challenges. Their sharp minds needed stimulation, and mischief was just boredom in disguise. When they rewired the estate's bell system to play music instead of punishing them, I asked them to explain how they did it. They lit up, talking over each other, showing me their work. You two are natural engineers, I said. These systems you create are remarkable. Celeste said, Father always tells us to stop tinkering. Cashan added, says we break things. I shook my head. You don't break things, you reimagine them. There's a difference. What if we set up a workshop where you could invent whatever you wanted without worrying about breaking household items? They stared at me. Truly, truly. Lucien gave me a questioning look when I asked him to clear out a storage room for the twins. You want to encourage their chaos. I want to channel their brilliance. They're not malicious, Lucien, they're understimulated. Give them appropriate outlets and the inappropriate ones will stop. He looked skeptical but agreed. Within a week, the twins had turned the workshop into something resembling a mad scientist's laboratory, and the household chaos decreased dramatically. They would still play tricks occasionally, but they were harmless pranks, and they would laugh with their victims instead of at them. Progress. And then there was Nikolai. Sweet, scared, traumatized Nikolai. At 6 years old, he had already learned that the world was dangerous and people left. He had nightmares every night. He had episodes where his vampire nature would surge and he would hurt himself trying to control it. He was terrified of his own hunger, his own strength, his own nature. The first time I witnessed one of his episodes, it broke my heart. I heard screaming from his room in the middle of the night. I ran and found him huddled in the corner, eyes glowing red, small fangs extended, crying hysterically. Hungry, he sobbed. Hurts, Elena, hurts so much, but I don't want to be bad, don't want to be a monster. Lucien appeared in the doorway with a glass of animal blood. He has to feed, but he fights it every time. I went to Nikolai carefully and knelt down. Sweetling, look at me. He shook his head. Can't, might hurt you. You won't hurt me, I trust you. Nikolai, everybody gets hungry. Human children need food, you need this, it doesn't make you bad, it makes you alive. He looked at me with those enormous eyes. Promise, I promise, now let's breathe together, remember, in and out. We breathed together until his shaking calmed slightly. Then I took the glass from Lucian and held it for Nikolai. There's no shame in this, you need it to be strong and healthy. He drank and I held him and he cried. I'm sorry, I'm like this. Oh, my darling boy, you have nothing to apologize for, nothing. Do you know what I see when I look at you? He shook his head. I see a brave, kind, beautiful child who is trying so hard. I see someone who cares about others even when he's hurting. I see someone I'm so proud of. His small arms wrapped around my neck. Love you, Elena. My heart stopped, then swelled so large I thought it might burst. I love you too, Nikolai, so very much. After that night he was mine completely. He followed me everywhere. He held my hand constantly. Every night I would sit with him until he fell asleep, singing lullabies and telling stories. Lucian found me there one night, asleep in a chair beside Nikolai's bed, still holding the child's hand. He covered me with a blanket and whispered something I was barely awake enough to hear. Thank you for loving him, for loving all of them. I whispered back, half asleep, how could I not? 3 months passed. The estate transformed from a tomb into something that felt like a home. There was laughter. The children started smiling, playing, being children instead of defensive creatures. And through it all I became aware of Lucian. The way he watched me with his children, his expression soft. The way he would appear when I needed something before I could ask. The way his hand would brush mine when he handed me things. The way my heart would race when he was near, and how the twins would giggle because they could hear it. One evening we all sat down for dinner together, something that had never happened before my arrival. The children were animated, talking over each other. Adrian was debating poetry with me. Byron is superior to Shelley, there's no contest. I argued back, Byron had better publicity, not better poetry. Shelley had depth. Adrian grinned. You only say that because you like romantics. I laughed. I say that because it's true. Serafina begged, Elena, tell them about the London dress shops you visited before everything. I smiled. Oh, they were magnificent. Silks from everywhere, laces so fine they looked like spider webs. Cashan groaned, boring. Celeste elbowed him, you're boring. Then they asked together, can we get a dog, a vampire dog? Exists such a thing? I have no idea, I admitted. Nikolai, sitting in my lap because that was his favourite place, tugged my sleeve. Tell the story about the knight and the dragon again. But mother, Adrian started to say, you promised. Then everything stopped. Silence fell like a curtain. Nikolai froze, realizing what he'd said. His eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. The others said not to call you that because you're not really, because you might leave if I'm sorry. I was crying, I pulled him close. Say it again, sweetheart, he whispered, mother. Yes, I sobbed. Yes, my perfect boy, Serafina's voice shook. Does that mean can we? I opened my arms, all of you. Always, you're my children, you've been my children. I was just waiting for you to be ready. They piled into my embrace. Even Adrian, trying to look aloof but failing completely, joined the group hug. This is undignified, he muttered. You're crying too, Celeste pointed out. Shut up, he said, but he was smiling. The twins were laughing and crying. Serafina held on like she'd never let go. Nikolai said it again and again, mother, 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 like he was testing the word, making it real. I looked up and saw Lucian standing abruptly, his face a mask of control that didn't quite hide the emotion underneath. He walked quickly to the balcony. I gently extracted myself from the children. Give me just a moment. I followed him outside into the cool night air. Lucian. He stood with his back to me, gripping the balcony railing. I haven't heard them laugh like that since Catherine died. His voice was rough. Haven't heard them call anyone mother, haven't seen them happy. I stepped closer. They're wonderful children. You've done well with them despite impossible circumstances. He laughed bitterly. I've done terribly. I gave them a cursed existence. I killed their mother. I've hidden them away like shameful secrets. Then you walked in and in 3 months did what I couldn't do in 6 years. You made them feel loved. Because they are loved. He turned to face me and his control was cracking. Elena, you don't understand. I can't. I swore I wouldn't. He stopped, jaw clenched. I said softly, wouldn't what? He looked at me with such raw emotion that I forgot to breathe. Wouldn't care for another human. Wouldn't risk that pain again. Wouldn't let myself feel anything beyond duty to my children. Then you arrived with your sad eyes and stubborn chin and your ridiculous bravery, and you made me hope. You made my children whole, you made this tomb a home, and I feel. What do you feel, Lucian? He stepped closer. Everything. For the first time in 6 years I feel everything. And it terrifies me because I've already destroyed one woman I cared for. I can't do that to you, I can't. I reached up and touched his face, feeling the coolness of his skin. I'm not Catherine, I'm not fragile, and I'm not going anywhere. He leaned into my touch. You should. You should run from this place, from me, from all of it, why don't you? Because I found my family, because those 5 children need me, because I took a breath, because when I'm with you I feel alive for the first time in years. His eyes widened, then warning bells started tolling. Urgent, loud. Lucian went rigid. No, this can't be happening. Adrian burst onto the balcony, breathing hard. Father, hunters, vampire hunters have found us. They have an extermination decree. At least 30 men, maybe more, armed with stakes, blessed silver, everything. They're at the gates demanding we surrender the children for execution. My blood went cold, then hot with rage. Where are the other children? Serafina has them in the safe room. But Elena, they'll breach the gates soon. These men, they don't negotiate. They kill every vampire they find. Lucian grabbed my shoulders. Elena, there's a passage in the cellar. It leads to the forest. Take it. Run, get far from here. I'll give you money, references, everything. Just go now. I pulled away from him. Are you insane? I'm not leaving my children. He said desperately, they'll kill you. You're human. You don't have to die for this. I met his eyes. They're my children. I'm their mother. We fight together or not at all. Adrian stared at me. You'd really fight for us, die for us, without hesitation. Now what are our defenses? Lucian looked between us and something shifted in his expression. He took my hand briefly, squeezed it, then became the warrior I suspected he'd been centuries ago. Adrian, seal the east wing, make them funnel through the main hall. Serafina knows defensive wards, her mother taught her. Have her activate them. Twins, you two get all the staff to the safe room with Nikolai. Make sure he doesn't try to fight, he's too young. What about me? I asked. Lucian handed me a very old, very sharp sword. Stay with me. If anyone gets through, you run with the children. Promise me. I promise to protect our children. That's all I can promise. He looked at me like he wanted to say 1,000 things, but only said, You're the most infuriating, magnificent, impossible woman I've ever known. You're welcome. Now let's save our family. The battle that followed was like something from a nightmare. Hunters poured through the gates with torches and blessed weapons. Lucian fought with centuries of skill, moving so fast he was a blur. Adrian fought beside him, protecting his father's back. Serafina's wards glowed, burning men who tried to pass. From somewhere in the house I could hear explosions. The twins had apparently booby-trapped corridors. I stayed near the main hall with my sword, praying I wouldn't have to use it. Then 3 hunters broke through, heading for the safe room where Nikolai was hidden. Oh no, you don't. I stepped into their path. Move aside, woman. This doesn't concern you. Everything about my children concerns me. The lead hunter laughed. Your children, you're human. These are abominations. These are terrified children you're trying to murder. I raised my sword. You'll have to go through me. They didn't take me seriously at first, then I fought. I wasn't good at it. My form was terrible. But I was desperate and furious and fighting for my children. I actually managed to disarm one hunter before another knocked me down. He raised his stake to drive it through my heart. Step aside, woman. That creature isn't human, neither is a mother's fury. Then Nikolai was there, tiny Nikolai who was so scared of his own nature. His eyes blazed red. Don't hurt my mother. Power I didn't know he had burst from him, throwing the hunter across the room. Nikolai, he turned to me scared. I'm sorry. I know I was supposed to hide, but I heard you fighting and I couldn't let them hurt you. I pulled him close. So brave, my sweet boy, so brave. Lucian appeared, dispatching the remaining hunters near us. He checked me frantically for injuries. You're bleeding, I'm fine. Nikolai saved me. Lucian pulled Nikolai into his arms. You're supposed to be in the safe room. Nikolai said firmly, Mother needed me. Lucian met my eyes over his son's head. Yes, she did. Thank you for protecting her. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Finally, the hunter's leader was captured and brought before Lucian. The man spit at his feet. More will come. The church has marked you. Your bloodline is condemned. Every vampire will be hunted. Every half-blood destroyed. Lucian's voice was cold. I have lived 300 years. I have survived wars, inquisitions, and countless hunters. You think I'm afraid of the church? I stepped forward, blood-spattered and furious. I am Elena Thorne, Duchess of Ravenwood. These are my children. And anyone I look directly at the hunter, anyone who threatens them will answer to me. The hunter laughed. You're human, you'll grow old, die. They're monsters who will outlive you by centuries. Why die for them? I smiled. Everyone dies, but I'll die loved and loving. Can you say the same? Will anyone mourn you? Or are you just a hateful man doing hateful things because someone told you to? Silence fell. The hunter had no answer. Lucian spoke to his guards. Release him, send a message to the church. The Thorne family will no longer hide. We will defend ourselves. And anyone who comes for us should make their peace with God first, because they won't leave Ravenwood alive. The hunter was dragged away, and suddenly I was shaking. Lucian caught me. I have you, you're safe, our children are safe. I sobbed into his chest. I was so scared I'd lose them. I know. But you didn't, you saved them, you saved all of us. Days later, after the repairs began and the children slowly stopped jumping at every sound, there was a small ceremony in the estate's chapel. Lucian had arranged it quietly, just family and a few trusted staff. A nervous priest married us. Do you, Lord Lucian Thorne, take this woman? Lucian cut him off. With every breath I no longer take, with all the life I no longer have, with everything I am and was and will be, yes. Forever, yes. And you, Lady Elena, I smiled through tears. Before God and monsters, before heaven and earth, yes, 1,000 times yes. We kissed and the children cheered. Nikolai hugged my legs. You're really our mother now, forever. I knelt to him. I was always your mother, sweetheart. This just made it official. Celeste said to Cashan, told you they'd get married. Cashan grumbled, fine, you win. Adrian cleared his throat awkwardly. Mother, may I have the first dance at the reception? My heart melted. You may, my son. We danced in the ballroom that hadn't been used in years. Lucian held me close. Any regrets about marrying a vampire, about becoming a mother to 5 supernatural children, about giving up any chance at a normal life? I pretended to think. Well, normal was always overrated, and I quite like my life, abnormal as it is. He laughed and spun me. I love you, Elena Thorne, fierce, impossible, perfect Elena. I love you, Lucian, my monster, my duke, my husband. My family. Months later we sat for a family portrait. The painter was frustrated. Your Grace, the children won't stay still. I laughed. They're half vampire. Stillness isn't in their nature. Cashan and Celeste were arguing about color schemes. Serafina was adjusting everyone's clothing. Adrian was trying to read a book while sitting for the portrait. Nikolai was climbing on Lucian's back. It was chaos. It was perfect. It was home. Lucian wrapped his arms around me from behind and I leaned into him. You know, you could still run, I'd understand. And miss this beautiful chaos? Never. His hand rested on my stomach and he froze. His vampire senses detected what I'd only just begun to suspect. Elena, is that? I smiled mysteriously. Impossible, the physicians said. But then again, so was this entire life. His eyes widened with joy and terror. But they said you were. Maybe I was never broken, I said softly. Maybe I just needed the right time, the right family. Or maybe loving these 5 so much healed something in me. Or maybe it's just a miracle. Does it matter why? Lucian turned me to face him. Are you happy? Terrified, I admitted. This shouldn't be possible. But I've learned that impossible things happen every day in this house. So yes, I'm happy, deliriously happy. The children suddenly paid attention. Serafina's eyes went wide. Wait, are you saying? Adrian's book dropped. A baby? The twins shouted together. We're going to be the older siblings to the older sibling. Nikolai looked panicked. Does this mean I'm not the baby anymore? I laughed. You'll always be my baby, Nikolai. But yes, you'll be a big brother too. Do you think you can help me with a new baby? He considered seriously. Will I have to share my lullabies? Never, you'll have your own songs always. Then okay, I'll help. Chaos erupted again, everyone talking at once, planning, arguing about names, debating whether the baby would be human or vampire or something in between. Lucian pulled me close. You terrify me, you know that. Good. A little terror keeps things interesting. He laughed. I love you, my impossible, infuriating, perfect Elena. And I love you, my monster, my duke. My love, my family. They called me barren, broken, less than a woman, worthless, cursed. My family disowned me, my husband discarded me, society wrote me off as a failure. But here's what I learned in the years that followed. A womb doesn't make you a mother. Love does, sacrifice does, showing up every single day for children who need you, that makes you a mother. I didn't give birth to those first 5 souls, but I chose them and they chose me. And in a world that tried to define my worth by what I couldn't do, I found a family who loved me for who I was. A vampire duke who saw strength where others saw weakness. 5 extraordinary children who needed a mother who understood what it meant to be called a monster. A home in a Gothic estate that everyone feared. A love that transcended everything society said was possible. I did eventually give birth. A daughter with my eyes and Lucian's smile. Human and healthy and adored by her 5 older siblings. The physicians who examined her asked how it was possible after all their diagnoses. I told them some things can't be explained, only experienced. That sometimes healing comes not from fixing what's broken, but from finding where you truly belong. My daughter grew up in a house where her brothers and sisters could move faster than eyes could track. Where her father didn't age and her mother aged slowly, Lucian having eventually turned me so we could have eternity together. Where magic was real and monsters were family and love was the most powerful force of all. She grew up knowing that families are built, not just born. That worth is inherent, not earned. That the things that make you different are often the things that make you extraordinary. And when she was old enough to understand, I told her my story. About being rejected and broken and lost. About walking through iron gates into a world I didn't understand. About 5 children who needed a mother and a mother who needed to be needed. About choosing love over fear, family over blood, belonging over acceptance. She asked me once if I ever regretted it. Regretted giving up the chance at a normal human life for this strange, supernatural existence. I looked around at my family. At Adrian, grown into a man of honor and strength, running the estate with wisdom. At Seraphina, elegant and powerful, a leader in both human and vampire society. At Cassian and Celeste, brilliant inventors whose creations helped both worlds. At Nikolai, kind and brave, who worked to help other half-vampire children accept themselves. At my daughter, beautiful and fierce and holy herself. At Lucian, my love, my partner, my eternity. And I said no, not for a single moment. This life, this family, this love, it was worth every rejection, every pain, every impossible thing I survived to get here. Because they called me Barren, but I mothered 6 children and helped raise dozens more. They called me worthless, but I became a duchess, a leader, a bridge between 2 worlds. They called me cursed, but I found a love that literally transcended death. They said I was broken, but I was just becoming who I was always meant to be. So no, I have no regrets, because I learned the most important truth. You are not defined by what you cannot do. You are not measured by society's standards. You are not worth less because you're different. You are exactly who you're meant to be, and somewhere out there is a family, a love, a life that needs exactly you, just as you are. Broken pieces and all, because sometimes the most broken people create the most beautiful families. And sometimes being chosen is even more powerful than being born. That's my story, the barren woman who became a mother, the rejected outcast who became a duchess, the broken human who joined a vampire family and found she fit perfectly. And every single impossible moment of it was real, is real, will always be real, because I chose to walk through those gates, I chose to stay, I chose love, and that made all the difference.